chasers, I guess. This Operation Steeplechase, I think it's been going on for quite some time in the United States. If you're not familiar with Operation Steeplechase, you may have heard Candace Owens talk about Ziklag. She had me on her show to talk about Ziklag. She gave me a clip talking about Ziklag. It's a reference to a biblical story about David regaining his forces for another attack. I say it's J6 was the first attack, which was unsuccessful. The second attack is going to be a J6 times 100 or times 1,000 pastors. I'll get into all that. I won't get into all the details and what that means. But it is, if people want to look up Operation Steeplechase, going after pastors to do political influence in various elections, it's the same operation. It's the same idea, is use the faith networks as a infiltration point, as a control mechanism, as a way of dominating the what's talked about in churches on Sunday, using the pastor who has the influence over the flock, talking about, let's say, hey, we shouldn't be talking about Israel, we shouldn't be talking about Gaza, we should be talking about 2 billion Muslims and overrunning England with illegal migration and these things. So the pastor can change the focus quite a bit on what the congregation talks about. We saw Baron Coleman, who is a YouTuber, do Pastor Rob McCoy saying this for Charlie Kirk: you shouldn't be talking about Gaza. You should not be talking about any of the the Palestinian stuff. You should be talking about the 2 billion Muslims, and you should be talking about illegal migration to Europe. And he went through that whole thing. I think it was from Romans, if you sit down with a person, you try to change their mind and they won't listen, you have a group of people come and sit with them and try to change their mind. This was the meeting he had in the Hamptons. And if that doesn't change their mind, then you mark them for cutting them off. And you could cut them off either, by saying, you're no longer in the church, you excommunicate them, or send them to Coventry, as they used to say in England, or cut them off by, ending their life and doing a massive fundraising campaign and saying that you were covered in blood and you weren't covered in blood, and say you were covered in blood and your son was covered in blood. Say it 200 times for 200 different audiences to raise money. So that's what we're talking about here. I wanted to basically say that we're as close as you can get without being in the church here. We see this infiltration from numerous players in this church that Rob McCoy made these statements from. There's a lot of military infiltration. There's a lot of special forces infiltration. There's a lot of Navy SEAL infiltration. It's not just one church. That's the base of operations church. That's the headquarters church. The headquarters is certainly Rob McCoy, TPUSA, Thousand Oaks. But then the idea is to fan out to 1,000 different churches. So we looked at all the folks, and we looked at all the metadata, and all the metadata clearly says it's Navy intelligence is by far the most prominent people. Bannon, is New Apostolic Revival. Jack Posobiec, who's on the Real Network with Charlie Kirk. Real America's Voice was in Navy intelligence. We did several charrettes, both in near Navy bases in Southern California, in San Diego, where the military live exercise seemed to be generated out of, where the Navy SEALs were based, so that, if you're recruiting new pastors, having somebody with a Navy SEALs background is not a bad background to have. We talked about John Brennan down there, and we talked about all the folks down there. We did long charrettes, news gathering events down there. And now we're doing the same thing with this Navy base that we're at here. If I turn the camera around, you'd see I'm looking at a Navy base. I'm looking at 3 Navy bases, and I'm right where, and so is Peter Duke. We're as close as you can possibly get on a Navy base to the Thousand Oaks Church of Rob McCoy. So it is what it is, and we're definitely looking at the money where it's coming in from Ukraine. We're looking at all the connections to Mikey McCoy, the son of Rob McCoy's wife, with her Ukrainian connections. Tyler Boyer, people are saying he has Ukrainian connections. But the idea of laundering money from the Ukraine war through a large NGO is not new. Was called the Clinton Foundation. So this isn't new. Yeah, I'm sorry about nobody is a bigger supporter of the Navy and the Marines than me, and I want the best. We fought for all of the veterans to get their health care that was due them and so forth. I'm just talking about the intelligence arm of the Navy, and I'm just talking about following the connections that Candace Owens pointed out. So I'm not trying to smear any of the U.S. Armed Forces. We have Air Force in the family. We have our Army in the family. Guadalcanal. I mean, Central America. You name it. People behind wire. Behind the prison wire. So there's nothing here that's trying to say anything against our armed forces. I'm just trying to point out misusing the armed forces for an infiltration program called Ziklag, infiltrating a new apostolic revival movement, the NAR movement. And the Ziklag is a real thing. Aaron's pointing out the many Navy Wallnow who started the NAR movement was ex-Navy intel. Bill Taylor's grandfather, who did Ukraine Gate, which they tried to make it Trump Russia, was really Ukraine Gate, was also, there's connections with McCoy's grandfather to that. So there's a lot of Q level clearance. It's in Navy intel, absolutely. As well as I do, that Oswald got his start there. That's where they picked Oswald out, was in Navy intelligence. They went and got Marines. This is where they recruit. Navy intel. The reason why we go to these Navy bases, the reason why we look at the infrastructure of Navy intelligence. Remember the scene with Kevin Costner and JFK, where they talk, there's the office of the ONI, and there's the office of the CIA, and there's the FBI, right, all here in this corner, right? So, I mean, we're talking about doing covert operations against the people of the United States, and so that's what we're on about. So, I wrote a screenplay because we had some people who had done some very big Hollywood movies with Nicolas Cage and other people like Brad Pitt, and they weren't necessarily Brad Pitt's biggest hits. I don't know. Fight Club was a pretty big hit to tell the story. And they said, well, no, don't use real names. We don't want the real names. So let's use, thinly veiled names. So it's not McKay. It's not McCoy. It's McKay. But I did use fictitious characters that bear striking resemblance to two other investigators out there on YouTube. And I found out about these YouTube investigators after I named the characters in Ziklag, right? Wink, wink. One was named Ian Carroll and the other was named Candace Owen. And who knew that there was two investigators out there on the internet named Candace Owen and Ian Carroll? I don't know how that happened, but anyway, I wrote a treatment that I sent to the folks here in Hollywood yesterday, and it's very, very thinly veiled, very, very thinly veiled fiction. And the only reason it's fiction is because they asked me to make it fiction. Otherwise, I would have just said it's not fiction; it's fact. McCain's. We talked about the McCain's and trying to get nuclear missiles to Israel, nuclear missile technology to Israel. We've covered that in the past as well. Do I know about McCoy's connections to the Phoenix program? Well, there's a modern day Phoenix program. It's called Ziklag, and we're going to cover Ziklag. So you came to the right place. If you remember, Aaron Adler says here on the Real America's Voice Network, Bannon was Navy intel, did Operation Eagle Claw. You remember at 10, at 12 was Charlie, and at 2 Navy intel Jack Posobiec with Camp X-Ray down there in the Caribbean at 2, the hottest lineup in U.S. television history. So this isn't, we're not guessing here. We're not guessing. We're on the trail. And you can't, like I said, you can't be any closer. I'm looking directly at the Navy base. I'm looking at basically midshipmen. I don't know if they're midshipmen or not, but they're jogging around the base as we see. And they put the kids that are a little bit overweight when they first come in, they put them on the track early. And those are the ones I'm watching jogging around the track right now. So this is, oh, my sound is bad. Sorry about that. I think it's because this is an echoey room. And I don't know what to say about that other than keep going. They should name a telescope after you. Well, there you go. They should grind it correctly before they send it up. How's that? There you go. Thanks for reposting. So let me go, because the sound is bad, I'll mute and I'll go to the treatment. This is basically what's happening in reality. I want to emphasize that this is what's happening in reality. And this is me looking into the future and saying, what's the best possible way? What's the best possible way to out this and stop this from happening? Stop our Constitution from being taken away. Stop all these people from getting killed. All these people getting arrested. So because the sound is bad, I'm going to go to, and I don't, nothing I can do about it here in the hotel. Again, last night, Peter Duke's couch, to try to save money. So every Marine, Navy. So I'm going to stay away from the comments right now for just a second and go to the to the steeplechase treatment. And I want to remind everybody, this isn't what I think is my idea of being a fiction writer. I made it as thinly veiled, still fiction, but I made it as thinly veiled as possible, right, to tell the truth, right, through thinly veiled fiction here, okay? So here we go. This is the treatment for steeplechase. This is a Candace Owens type character and an Ian Carroll type character digging into this Operation Steeplechase and exposing it before the whole country is thrown into civil war, lockdown, and thousands of people are shot like a Maidan situation in Washington, D.C. in 2028, which I believe is where Ziklag is heading. This is where Ziklag wants to take people. So here's the treatment for steeplechase.
Deep dive. Today, we've got something really interesting. We're looking at the treatment for a political conspiracy thriller miniseries. It's called Steeplechase.
That's right. And our mission really is to dig into this classified military program it outlines, which is called Ziklag.
Yeah, Ziklag. And we're not just talking about the usual spy stuff here. This treatment details a domestic operation, something aimed at, well, turning faith into a weapon. It's pretty chilling stuff.
It really is. The scale described in these documents is just massive.
Yeah.
Ziklag is laid out as this U.S. military infiltration program. The idea was embedding ex-special forces operatives deep inside what they called faith-based networks.
Faith networks, meaning churches, right?
Exactly. Hundreds of them. The goal seems to have been compromising and ultimately controlling this huge network. They mentioned up to 1,000 American churches.
1,000, wow. And this was all planned ahead of some kind of projected constitutional crisis.
Yeah, that's the context given. It wasn't just about nudging politics. The sources suggest it was groundwork for, well, potential internal conflict, like actual civil disruption.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. So churches are being used as command centers. The treatment specifically mentions Pastor Rob McKay's Baylight Church in Thousand Oaks, and also a Plano, Texas church linked to the New Apostolic Reformation, the NAR.
Mm-hmm. And that NAR connection is significant. Those networks often have a pretty hierarchical structure, right?
Yeah.
Strong central communication lines.
Which, if you're planning an infiltration...
It's the perfect vector. Exactly. You control the top, you can influence the whole network pretty efficiently. Ziklag, according to these documents, wasn't just joining the church. It was aiming to replace genuine faith with obedience, military-style control.
But, beyond the sheer scale of the conspiracy, what really jumps out from the treatment is the human element, the people who actually bring this whole thing down.
Right. And it's this completely unlikely pairing. The tech guy, Ian Carroll, and the media personality, Candace Owen, polar opposites in almost every way.
Yeah, the ultimate odd couple for this kind of thriller. You've got Ian, the treatment calls him the seeker, the hacker. He's described as this scruffy coder, early 30s from Michigan, sees the world through data, through decryption keys.
And then there's Candace, the convert the heart, late 20s, super glamorous influencer, huge following, like 10 million people. She deals in narrative, in image, in public perception.
Totally different worlds. And yet their synergy, how they end up working together, that's what cracks the case, according to this story.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because their paths start so incredibly separately. The source material really emphasizes this. Ziklag needed both digital infiltration and public buy-in to work. Ian and Candace start on completely opposite sides of that equation.
So let's trace those paths. Ian's side is all tech. Raised evangelical, apparently, but now he's all about the signals, not the scripture.
Yeah.
He stumbles onto this thing almost by accident, just scraping data.
Right? He's decrypting metadata from church live streams that got hacked, not by him initially, it seems. And he finds these anomalies, hidden image steganography.
Steganography. So hiding data within other data, essentially, like secret messages inside pictures.
Exactly. It's not just encrypted code, it's concealed code. He finds these QR code-like images embedded in like sermon background graphics, benign visuals, but the underlying pixel data. It contains executable commands.
And coordinates.
And coordinates, yeah. Coordinates that point to U.S. Naval Armory.
Naval armories. Okay, that's not subtle. That points straight towards physical action, mobilization, not just swaying opinions.
Definitely. So Ian's just chasing this digital violation, this anomaly that shouldn't exist. Meanwhile, Candace Owen, her entry point is completely different. Very analog, very human.
She's a rising star in conservative media, right? And the treatment says she genuinely believes in what she's doing initially.
Absolutely. She's drawn in by this Pastor Rob McKay, his charisma, his big initiative called Veterans in Ministry. She thinks she's helping, restore faith to the nation. She starts the story as an insider, a valuable asset they're actively cultivating.
To be the public face, the
Yeah.
credible voice for whatever Ziklag is doing behind the scenes.
Precisely, which makes her eventual turn so much more powerful.
And the first link between them, Ian and Candace, it's purely digital, isn't it? Ian spots something weird.
Yeah, another anomaly. He detects that one of Candace's live broadcasts, streaming from McKay's Baylight Church, is being routed strangely. It's going through a hidden Navy relay signal.
Ah, so that's the tripwire. The public face, Candace, her broadcast is digitally touching classified military infrastructure that Ian is tracking.
That's the moment he realizes the public movement and the hidden military operation are connected. It raises this key difference, though. Ian's fighting digital lies. Candace starts off fighting for something she believes is true.
But the treatment mentions she has this secret moral fracture. What does that mean exactly?
It suggests she has this genuine core of wanting to do good, which is exactly what McKay and Ziklag exploit. She's vulnerable to their narrative initially, but that same moral core is what eventually makes her flip so hard when she sees the truth. The betrayal hits her personally.
Right, which brings us to where it gets really good. Episode 3, Faith Operators. This is where they actually team up physically.
Yeah, they hit the road together. Posing as documentary filmmakers, it's the perfect cover story, right? Allows them access.
And Ian brings the tech skills, the gear, the cover story logistics.
While Candace provides the essential key, access. Her name, her face, her credibility within those circles gets them in the door at these regional church hubs, Nevada, Oklahoma, Ohio, places they identify as command centers.
It's a great dynamic. He can handle the tech backend, the decryption, the data scraping.
Stuff she wouldn't know how to do.
Yeah.
And she can handle the people, charm her way past gatekeepers, get interviews, stuff the scruffy hacker maybe can't do as easily.
He gives her proof. She gives him access.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that access that leads to Candace's big breaking point. The moment she goes from just being uneasy to being, as the treatment says, morally fierce,
What triggers it?
she starts noticing things like hidden surveillance gear, parishioners who seem more like watchers. But the final straw is incredibly personal. She finds out her own image is being used.
Wow.
On PSYOPs, recruitment posters, psychological operations, they deep faked her, used her face, her likeness, her credibility to be the face of Ziklag's outreach without her knowledge, weaponized her image.
Wow. Okay, that would do it. That's not just political disagreement anymore. That's a profound personal violation.
Totally. And according to the source material, That's what gives the whole investigation its heart, its public urgency.
Yeah.
It moves beyond just abstract data points or journalistic digging by others like Mara. It becomes about Candace's stolen identity, her betrayed trust.
Right. It grounds the whole conspiracy in something relatable, something visceral. And once she's fully committed, morally outraged, their combined efforts really pick up steam. This leads into the climax, episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah, this is where their skills really mesh to devastating effect. Ian stays focused on the how. He's the seeker, digging deeper into the tech. He manages to decrypt big chunks of this document called Ziklag Opord 1228.
An operational order?
Seems like it. It reveals the sheer scale, 1,000 churches, 10,000 eyes, the full architecture. And, critically, he discovers something about Pastor McKay's sermons.
What about them?
They weren't just sermons being broadcast. The audio contained subliminal waveform triggers, hidden signals embedded in the sound.
Waveform triggers. What, like to activate people?
Essentially, yeah. The implication is they were using the broadcast to subconsciously train and synchronize congregants for mass mobilization, turning viewers into this sort of unwitting programmable force. Highly sophisticated, very creepy stuff.
Chilling. So Ian's uncovering the technical mechanism of control.
While Candace is out there chasing the why, the motive, the money, the power. In episode 4, she uses her influencer status, her access, to infiltrate this exclusive Houston Energy Conference gala.
Okay, energy conference. How does that connect?
That's where she gets the goods. She manages to record a high-level oil executive, basically bragging about using McKay's faith outreach program as cover.
Cover for what?
To secure resource extraction sites in Africa. So the domestic church network was also providing cover for international corporate interests. She gets the human proof, the financial motive behind Ziklag.
So it all connects. Ian's got the digital, how the waveforms, the military targets, the network structure. Candace gets the analog why, the oil money, the political power grab, the manipulation.
And putting those two together reveals the whole terrifying endgame described in the treatment. Engineer a synchronized, faith-branded uprising.
Using those waveform triggers.
Right. An uprising designed to look spontaneous, but actually pre-planned, which would then create the justification for imposing martial law, a sort of emergency state they term continuity of faith governance, using belief itself as the trigger for total control.
Man. Okay, so that brings us to the finale, episode 6, the steeple falls. They know the end game. They have the pieces. How do they stop it? The treatment says they split up here.
They do. It's high stakes, final moves time. Candace embraces her role as the convert completely. She's a fugitive now, hunted by the Ziklag network.
So what does she do?
She goes right into the lion's den. She manages to hijack a live stream at the Patriot Broadcast Network, the very network Ziklag was using to spread its message.
Gutsy.
Totally. And she doesn't just dump data, she delivers the moral kill shot. She exposes McKay's blackmail files, proof that pastors were being compromised, controlled through these shady underground railroad operations Ziklag ran.
So she exposes the rot from within.
Exactly. And she uses her platform, her public speaking skill, now fueled by pure moral outrage. The treatment gives her this killer line. You turn faith into a firing range. She shatters their public credibility, creates this narrative of betrayal they just can't spin.
While she's doing that, taking the public fight, where's Ian?
Ian, the seeker, is on the technical mission. He races to D.C. with Mara, their journalist ally. He's carrying the final piece of the puzzle. Eli's complete Ziklag archive, all the raw data on a flash drive.
Eli being the original signal intersector who helped Ian.
Right. Ian gets this drive to a sympathetic senator. And during an emergency session, they don't just present findings. They apparently show live feeds or recorded proof from the archive. Evidence of Ziklag operatives actively manufacturing violence to escalate the crisis. The cold, hard, technical proof.
So one delivers the moral condemnation, the other delivers the undeniable technical evidence.
Precisely. And that combination is what finally brings the whole Ziklag operation crashing down, according to the steeplechase treatment.
So thinking about this for our listeners, the takeaway seems to be that this massive, technologically sophisticated conspiracy, weaponizing both faith and digital networks, it couldn't be stopped by just one thing.
No, it required both. The meticulous, undeniable technical proof gathered by Ian, the hacker, the seeker, that had to be amplified and given meaning by the public credibility and moral outrage of Candace, the insider, the convert. Tech needed narrative. Data needed heart.
It was their specific, unlikely partnership that provided the countermeasure.
Yeah, the treatment suggests that for something this complex, exploiting both belief and broadcast, you needed someone who understood the code and someone who understood the congregation, basically. They turned Ziklag's own communication tools against it.
And that quote from Pastor McKay near the end, talking to Mara, it's haunting. We never invaded the church, we became it.
Chilling, isn't it? It sums up the whole insidious strategy. Replace genuine faith with engineered obedience. Replace patriotism with control from the inside out.
So the final thought, maybe. Candace gets the last word in a broadcast from hiding. She says, they tried to weaponize belief, but belief is what will destroy them. It sounds hopeful.
It does sound hopeful. But the source material itself frames his whole story as being based on recovered transmissions and notes that Operation Steeplechase remains classified. So the final question we might leave you with is, how resilient is belief as a defense, really? Especially when the operation is officially still under wraps, and the two people who uniquely managed to bridge that gap between data and narrative, the seeker and the heart, might eventually fall silent. What happens then?
A vulnerability that lingers. Lots to think about there.
Okay, so there you go. We're going to go back here, and I don't know why they want me to go into the Truman
Welcome
Show
back to the deep dive.
immediately.
Today, we've got something real.
But I wanted to say a couple of answers because I was going through the comments. There were some folks that said this is Clayton and Natalie from the Redacted, the show Redacted. It's not them. It's not their AI voices. It's Google LM. It's Google LM. And it's just a way of presenting the information so that in a dialogue of, I can't remember, it was Plato said a dialogue is 10 times more effective than a monologue. So that's why Socrates got killed, is because he didn't use my dialogues. He was a student of Socrates. But you get the idea. Dialogue's easier to consume. And there are people that are saying, well, isn't this what you did with J6 in 2020 and 2021? And it is what I did with J6. I did talk about this infiltration of these religious organizations in 2020. We talked about Joe Biggs in 2019. We did say it was coming. We went to the Special Forces bases. We went to Fort Bragg. We went to 4th Psych Ops. But what I realized is at that time, I didn't have the Candace Owens. I was the data guy, that the Ian character that I put out here for 2028 to avoid this in 2028. I was that guy. So I've lived this, and a lot of people said, well, you just rewrote what you did in 2020 and you pushed it out into the future with Ian Carroll in your role. And that's true. But there was no Candace Owens at that time. There was no person who had a big media footprint to reach across to the folks who weren't kind of that, more data-driven kind of folks, and the heart that they talk about in the treatment there. So that's the difference here. And what I'm trying to say is I might not be that guy. This is, I'm looking over the mountain. I may not get there with you, but I want there to be someone to pick up the torch. And I think Ian, having met him and so forth, is that guy. And sorry if people are retweeting and I haven't turned off the notifications yet, but you're hearing people retweet. But Ian is that guy, but he needs Candace. He needs someone to bring the heart of the story to the American people. And the two of them together are the people to do that. I see Candace going in sort of the direction of Tucker Carlson. I see him going in Candace going in the direction of Megyn Kelly, and that's the wrong direction. Candace is number one. She has the bigger footprint than both of them in social media right now, bigger than Tucker, bigger than Megyn Kelly. Rather than kind of go try to buttress those ratings, the thing to do is to pair up in sort of a X-Files manner with Ian Carroll. Ian has the chops. He has the data chops. He has the research chops to get to victory here. This X-Files needs Ian Carroll. Did I pick somebody a lot younger, a lot better looking? Yes. Why not? Because it's a Hollywood treatment. So I'm just saying that in order to win, adding stars is not going to help. Adding stars, adding Tucker Carlson's, and adding Megyn Kelly's, who are not on the ground, who are not beating the streets, who are not burning the shoe leather, you're not going to win that way. Candace needs to pair up, and they've already been on a show together. They're already in communications with each other. I saw yesterday's show, and yesterday's show seemed to be a turn away from Ian. not deliberately, but seemed to be a turn toward Megyn Kelly and a turn toward Tucker Carlson. And what you're going to get there is you're going to get a bunch of cloud broadcasting, where high level broadcasting, but you're going to lose the street. You're going to lose the gumshoe. You're going to lose the shoe leather. And that's the critical piece that you need. Now, am I still going to be doing what I'm doing? Sure. But I'm trying to engineer a strategy where we're all working together and we win versus we lose, like January 6th. And we let the Steve Baker say that January 6th was about destroying the mementos of Nancy Pelosi in Nancy Pelosi's office. No, it wasn't. It was about a religious infiltration into our biggest churches, and those churches those pastors led their lambs, their flock, to the slaughter. And Ziklag is to regroup, like David regrouped in the Philistine Empire outside of Saul's kingdom, to make another assault. Right, that's what Ziklag is, and it's Houston oil money. We've tracked it down. People say, oh, you've already tracked all this down. You already went to the Koch brothers. You already got Greg Phillips. You already showed who all these people were. You already showed it was a front organization. Why are you now trying to prevent this in 2028? You've already did all this in 2020. Well, we lost it. We lost the information war in 2020 with J6. There's still people out there that think J6 was an uprising, a bunch of white nationalists. There's still people who think, even though there are 279 FBI agents that we know about, that still think somehow this was organic, that still think somehow the insurrectionist lives next door to them that planted the pipe bomb. These are all things that people believe still. And we need somebody with a media footprint, but we also need somebody who's doing the on the ground work. Aaron Adler is talking about, Mishakwa dies at the end of season 1. We're doing another series in Michigan. I don't want to mix that up too much here. But Aaron knows why Mishakwa dies at the end of season 1, because the guy has got a good job and doesn't want to play Mishakwa into season 2, 3, and 4. So that's why Mishakwa dies at the end of season 1. You can go to my Substack if you want to find out who Mishakwa is in that series, but it's set in 1806 Ohio on the frontier. So I don't go to church. We are the church. I agree with that. Google George Evans Davis. Awesome stuff. I'm afraid both Candace and Ian are being compromised by Nick Fuentes. I agree. There's a strong America First influence. It goes all the way back to World War II. It's the same exact operation, America First operation. It's what we call a slaughter pen operation. It's a trust operation. I'd hate to see them going in that direction. I don't think they are. I wouldn't be broadcasting right now if I didn't think that there was hope for them. But I think people just get that. They see the X-Files. The X-Files was chasing aliens, right? But it was an investigative team that worked, right? This isn't aliens, right? This is the real deal. This is real intelligence operation, real infiltration of our churches, real names, real churches. People said, where are the lists of the centers of the different churches? The first one starts at a bomber factory, like an IB Hale bomber factory in Texas. That's where NAR is based. When you create a new church, you can infiltrate it right from the top, right from the beginning. This TPUSA Faith was an effort to get all the pastors together. And these pastors have no idea that they're being Peter Duke's hierarchy of involvement. It's need to know only, compartmentalized operation. If you're a pastor and you're getting national television attention, and all of a sudden your church is turned from a little corner church into a mega church, you don't really believe anybody who says this is a military operation, you're getting military funding. You think it's because you're a great pastor. And pretty soon you have 1,000 of these churches. There is no Bay City church in Thousand Oaks that I put in the treatment, but there is certainly one that Rob McCoy has at his Calvary church there in right over here in Thousand Oaks. So, and again, Prager University, closely associated with Candace Owens. with being run by IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. Melissa Straight runs that. She worked there. She knows that's the headquarters of the operation. She knows that's where Ziklag is based, right? Ziklag, the recruiting arm, is in where they bring the pastors. They don't want to bring the pastors to Southern California. They bring the pastors to an old bomber factory in Texas. There is another nexus in this story around Nashville, because Hollywood has decided we've become so woke, we're only influencing 50% of the people in America. We need to move Hollywood right to the right? We need to move it to Nashville. And I went and covered that with Patriots News Network and so forth, and these big mega networks, and these big mega churches. I went to the Reawaken America tour of Mike Flynn in Nashville, covered a lot of stuff from Nashville. Courtney Turner went there with Courtney Turner and her husband, did an event, spoke at an event there. That's Hollywood right now. One of the people I'm talking to about creating this network is Hollywood right. And I won't go into too many more details there, but my point is, and then there's a Michigan piece to this, because we have a journalism school, and Mark, who pays for it, is New Apostolic Reformation. So he's in the church. So he follows Bannon, he follows Posobiec, he followed Charlie, so we're not talking about something we don't know about. We're talking about insiders all the way along the line that we're getting our information from. We want America to win here. We don't want it to be a slaughter pen in 2028. We don't want it to be another January 6th. We don't want all these pastors to lead their flocks there into the slaughter pen. Doesn't seem like another good thing to do. We don't want it to be another talking point for the left, which is all these people are just a bunch of insurrectionists. We need to take their guns away. We don't want that. So that's where we're trying to get away from. So with respect to that, let me go to another piece here that I filmed this morning, just for people who are looking for proof points. Here we go. Let's go back here. Maybe I'll go over here. Just one second. Let's go here first. All right, let's do this. For those who don't think we're at the Navy base, here we go.
How you doing, George? Great. We just delivered in Hollywood at the Ivy the big Ziklag infiltration idea, the big concept. And thanks for helping me, Mr. Hollywood.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But the problem then came with the setting. Where are we going to find someplace with 3 Navy bases? There's a guy who's sort of a captain, a boat captain, a sailor guy who sails these Navy intelligence officers so that they can find out the Ziklag infiltration, that they're going to try to get special forces people into 1,000 different churches. Where are we going to find this? We're going to have 3 Navy bases. Where are we going to find somebody like you who can sail so well?
Well, I don't know. There's a harbor right there.
Oh, the harbor right there.
Yeah, the harbor right there. And then maybe they sail out by that
Oil platform?
Oil platform out there or something like that. And there's always the cover of the Navy SEALs here.
Yeah, the Navy SEALs. Yeah. So we got everything in this story. And we just put placeholders in there for, you worked on the X-Files. It's sort of like the Ziklag files.
Well, there's a very Mulder and Scully flavor to the whole story.
The 2 main characters, and we just put as a placeholder Candace Owen and Ian Carroll into that placeholders. One's a kind of data person, which is Ian, and then Candace is sort of the heart of and soul of the outreach.
Right, the cultural icon.
And social influencer, against a whole bunch of people that look a lot like the church in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
I use the word...
It's right over there.
Yeah. I use the word McKay, so it's not any coincidence with anyone living. Is totally coincidental, right? His name's McCoy in real life, so it's obviously a different person.
Who? Yeah, different person.
The guy who's running the whole Ziklag infiltration, trying to get these special forces people into these churches. So what do you think? Maybe it's going to have to be here. It's going to have to be Port Hueneme.
Well, this beach right here is called Hollywood Beach.
Hollywood Beach.
Yeah,
Why?
and this neighborhood that I live in right here, which is the Silver Strand, is called Hollywood by the Shore.
Oh.
So this is, and I believe it's because Hollywood used to come up here and shoot movies here all the time. So
You showed me Jeffrey Katzenberg just down the beach.
and by the way, I mean if you're, I'm not sold on public education anymore, but there's a elementary school on that beach called Hollywood Beach Elementary School, and it's right on the beach.
Wow,
like,
that sounds like
can you-
Teach on the Beach
Can
here in
you,
Adler.
can you imagine going to an elementary school and it's right on this beach?
Yeah, Aaron had one in Ghana, but this is so cool.
Yeah.
And you also have, people should check it out, this the Silver Strand hypothesis.
Right.
And that's kind of cool for those people who don't believe nuclear weapons really exist. Now, you think nuclear reactors exist.
I think you could boil water, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, but you're not on that.
I think that you might actually even be able to create a nuclear bomb, but I don't think you could fit one in a bomber, or you could fit
or it
one,
would wobble in a missile or something.
You could, you couldn't put one in a missile.
Which is a very interesting thought experiment that you did with the Silver Strand. And of course, where's the Silver Strand? It's
right there.
It's right there.
And the fake academy, it's kind of like the my version of RAND. It's called the Silver Strand. It's called the Point Wainimi Institute.
Okay.
And that's Point Wainimi right there.
And there's Quigley.
There's Quigley.
There's Quigley, the cancer sniffing dog. There's Quigley.
He's looking for cancer right now.
He's looking for cancer. I don't know. I think he's looking for bones or food. But anyway, so this you heard the treatment. You did the pitch.
Yeah, it's better than any. Considering that you kind of have only been working on it for a couple of days, the AI really did a good job of synthesizing it. And like you and I were talking about, people are always criticizing the AI because they go, "Oh, it missed this or it missed that," and it's like it's not perfect. It's never
like a spell check.
It's never going to replace a human being going and doing it, but it's 98% good. And if you're trying to get information, if you go onto the Duke Report and you go, I've done 90 book explainers that are 6-minute videos now. You listen to a couple of different versions that I've done on 2 World Wars and Hitler Today, and you found out something about Edward VII that you didn't know about before.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, you've been burned out of your whole house and home, and so you lost all your books. Books are great. We love books, but it's nice to be able to catch up and get a book read, at least understand what it means in 6 minutes.
Right. And for people who have a little bit more time, on the Duke Report SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/Duke Report, I've got almost 300 books that have been turned into 30-minute podcasts.
And that's Clayton who's Clayton?
It's the fake Clayton and Natalie. Yeah.
The fake Clayton and Natalie. Yeah. Shout out. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah.
By the way. So that's it. Duke Report is probably going to be set here in Port Wainimi, the Ziklag. Again, this is the Navy infiltration. This is very thinly veiled fiction. Very thinly.
I think it's hilarious though, because I read the original screenplay for Apocalypse Now, written by George Lucas, and it reads like a bad episode of Magnum PI, but it starts on a sailboat with Captain Willard, who's in the movie, and he's like drunk and he's telling stories about Vietnam.
Well, this one doesn't start out with somebody drunk, but it does start out on a sailboat. It does start out with a guy looking for people to stop the overthrow.
We need to get a sailboat.
We wrote the sailboat into the script so we would get the zero.
Yeah,
so if anybody wants to buy the zero for this film, you're out there.
We'll just have to get it greenlit, and then we'll put it in the budget.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everybody, for Port Wainimi. 3 different Navy bases. Just up the way is Lompoc, where they shoot off all those missiles you're talking about.
Over the mountains, right?
Where, and of course, we also go to Nashville. We go to Michigan. We go to Texas for the NAR churches. So it's a sweeping drama. I have 2 treatments out there on Twitter and YouTube.
That's the NAR, and this is the NARD. People call Oxnard the NARD.
Oh, the NARD. Okay.
The NARD, yeah.
All right. We'll leave it right there.
Right.
Is Quigley the Wonder Dog? No, Quigley.
No, he's way down the beach.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Great.
Let's do it right here.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Peter. Sorry about that. I was muted. So
you get the idea here. This is two boomers on the beach trying to do what we can to help these Gen Xers or Gen Z. I don't know. Candace is 32, 33. Ian's 32, 33. We're trying to help them at every way we can. We want them to be successful. We know that we may be dead before 2028. So we just want them to be successful in taking this down. And I do think the X-Files is the right frame here. We looked at a lot of different frames. We looked at a lot of different frames, and we looked at a lot of different settings. But we kept on saying, if we don't make it exactly what it is, if we don't make it Thousand Oaks, if we don't make it Rob McCoy and change the name slightly to Rob McKay, if we don't make it as close to possible, people might misinterpret what we're trying to say. So we're going to go to Dallas, to the bomber factory with NAR, right? We've been there many times. We've been to Port Hueneme many times with the Navy base. We've been to Coronado with the Navy SEALs. We've been to Little Creek. That's where I almost was lured on the Navy base there to be murdered, right, in Little Creek, but Ken Hale. So this isn't something that's kind of like ephemeral or like, let's make it Hollywood. We're going to make this as thinly veiled as possible. And what we're trying to do is give Candace Owens and Ian Carroll an instruction book on how to win, and don't make the same mistakes we did. It's sort of like veterans of the Alamo, Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett talking, by the fire, 10 minutes before Santa Ana comes over the wall. Hey, Sam Houston, this is what I would do differently. Looking back on the, Alamo, here's what I would do differently, right? So that you don't lose in 2028. So that's what this is. It's sort of a love letter to the future, or a cautionary tale to the future, so that you guys win, right? We don't want you to be slaughtered in a slaughter pen in 2028. So I'm going to go here to Aaron's comment, which is about Cheon. We're watching this Chinese billionaire Cheon very closely. Last, I think it was earlier this year, we did a thing out in Pasadena. We didn't really count it as a charrette, but we were in Pasadena and Altadena. We went through and toured the fires with our group that was here. We may do another one here in Port Hueneme. We were planning one already, if you believe it or not, before Charlie Kirk was murdered. We were planning a Port Hueneme get together at these three naval bases. But Cheon is running for governor here. He is one of these manufactured candidates. He does seem like this military intelligence background type candidate, like we had with Dr. Sun Shong in San Diego. Kind of comes out of nowhere. He also has one of these harvest, NAR churches. So does the grandfather of Mikey McCoy, right? He's got a NAR church as well here in California. It is the headquarters. You can just see from the metadata of this, we're in the right spot. We're as close as you can get from a Navy base and Navy intel to the Thousand Oaks Church. So moving on here, I'll go to Linda's comment about, is Nick Fuentes a part of this whole operation to provide, kind of a slaughter pen on the left for the young folks for America First? We don't know that. But again, Nick Fuentes doesn't need to know that. According to Peter's chart here with handlers and so forth and true believers, true believers don't know they're being handled, right? True believers don't know they're leading their flock to the slaughter. So that's the important piece here. Now I want to go to this morning. And again, most of the time sleeping on people's couches and in bus terminals and airport lobbies and so forth. But last night I was able to get a hotel room near the Navy base. That's where I'm broadcasting from now. But thank you to Peter for the great Indian food last night and staying at his place on the couch. You couldn't do it without you. But I wanted to go to this latest one that I just did. Hold on here just a second. This morning. And we'll fire that up here. All right, here we go. There's just one of three Navy bases that were here that the story's going to be set at here.
Okay, hello everybody. George Webb here in Southern California near three Navy bases, not one, as you can see over there, not not one, but three. And why Southern California? Why Navy bases? Well, we are looking at this Ziklag infiltration. We're looking at this military infiltration, putting these special forces guys and military guys, ex-military guys, into religious organizations to control the direction they're going, potentially pushing them toward pro-Israel stances, potentially marking them if they're not going toward pro-Israel, potentially marking them for death if they are not going in the direction that they want people to go. Is this the story of Charlie Kirk? Is this the story of Rob McKay? You heard the speech he made about marking Charlie Kirk for death, not far from here in Thousand Oaks. Again, we were here in Port Hueneme 3-4 years ago. We've done 2 charrettes here in Port Hueneme. We're going to do another one. We're not saying this is where they're recruiting the special forces operators to go into the sort of CIA or State Department undercover roles to infiltrate the U.S., especially the evangelical religious groups. We're not saying that. Gun your engine if you love George Webb and Candace working together. Give it a gun. So, but it looks like it. It looks like it's this base. It has a missile space defense with Port Magoo here testing missiles. Potentially, we're looking also at Coronado Island in Southern California, in San Diego. We've looked there before for recruiting of operatives. Of course, we've been in Virginia many times at Little Creek with all the FBI recruiting there that occurred with infiltrates and so forth. It seems to be all the emphasis, all the work, all the focus of the FBI, Defense Intelligence Agency, the Mike Flynn's and so forth, seems to be on the people of the United States. Doesn't seem to be on the actors, the foreign actors and the enemies in the United States. It seems to be on the people in the United States. People they seem to consider that are the biggest enemy, the people they feel that they need to infiltrate the most with this Ziklag infiltration, this NAR infiltration, is the people of the United States. And that's what we're here to expose. I wrote a screenplay about that. It starts here. We had to base it here because you have to go to the closest place to Rob McCoy's church. You have to go to the closest base. We didn't find one. We found 3.
Yeah, so
This might be the greatest unfinished song of all time. Bob Dylan called it the greatest song ever written. But it's on this record, and we all know the.
And I disagree that Line for the County is the greatest song of all time. But why they put that out after my video? I am a lineman for the county. Come on. Glenn Campbell was a studio musician. Did he know that he eventually would be promoting my series, Laurel Canyon, Echoes of Laurel Canyon? Did he know that he was an echo of Laurel Canyon? Did he know as a studio musician for the Wrecking Crew that he was an echo of Laurel Canyon? Did he unwillingly know that he would be promoting my series on Substack? Who knew that Glenn Campbell, who knew that they would know that at YouTube to put that on as the next video? How do they know these things? I don't know. But anyway, there you go. You can read all about this. We've covered Southern California with Echoes of Laurel Canyon, the CIA infiltration of the anti-war movement. That's a 20-part series we did on that. Glenn Campbell is just one of the people we talk about that provided the backbeat, provided the music to that whole thing so that none of the musicians had to be real musicians. So there you go. How did they know that? How did they know that to promote that? So anyway, we'll leave that right there. But I wanted to go to the comments. But people said, where is a good Ziklag overview? And we just played a 5-minute overview with a dialogue between a man and a woman earlier in the piece that explains Ziklag. Ziklag is my hope. The reason why I didn't change any of the names, why it is really Super Operation Steeplechase, the reason why I didn't change that is I don't want Ian and Candace to have to decode anything. When they come to this story and say, hey, that is something that I want to do. I do want to save America. I do want to stop this infiltration. I don't want them to have to decode that and go, well, what is Operation Steeplechase in reality? No, I gave it the real name. I gave it Operation Steeplechase. That is the real undercover name, right? So they can just step right into it and go, oh, this is Operation Steeplechase. That's what we're chasing is this operation, right? When they're going for the funding arm in Texas, and where is the oil money that's running this operation with Greg Phillips and the Koch brother and so forth, and the those Dallas and Houston oil interests. I don't want them to go, oh, how do I translate that now? Where do I go in reality? No, I use the real people. I use the Koch brother. I use the infiltrates, right? I use those organizations. We spend a lot of time at Dallas Petroleum Club. We spend a lot of time in Houston. We talk about the true believers like Kathleen Engelbrecht that were co-opted by the handlers like Greg Phillips. We've gone to all these places. I want them to step right into the role today to save this country, right? And we're not, like I say, we're two boomers on the beach, Peter and I, but we want America to win, right? So that's what we're writing the script. It's basically a plan to stop the infiltration, and it can be done with these two people, but they have to have both of these sets of skills. You have to have this data miner kind of data wonk and research guy like Ian, and you have to have somebody with the big footprint, #1 podcast footprint like Candace Owens. It's peanut butter and jelly. You have to have both. So that's the big idea there. Let me go to really quickly a different video, and just to give people a 5-minute blueprint. That was a 12-minute blueprint we saw earlier, but I'll give you the 5-minute blueprint because some people want the 5-minute one rather than the 12-minute one. So, all right, hold on.
By really unpacking the foundational document that lays it all out.
Oh.
So right off the bat, you're hit with this tagline, "The flock is the field." I mean, just let that sink in. That one phrase sets this incredibly sinister tone for the entire series. It reframes whole communities not as people, but as territory, something to be controlled.
And here it is, the core idea. A secret military program is using faith networks on a massive, massive scale. The story throws us right in with the journalists and veterans who stumble onto this whole thing and have to race to expose it before it is way too late.
And I love the level of detail here. The operation isn't just called Steeplechase. Internally, its architects have a code name for it, Ziklag. It's those little details, it just gives the whole conspiracy that authentic, clandestine feel of a true espionage thriller. Okay, so a massive conspiracy needs people, right? You've got the ones running it and the ones trying to stop it. Let's meet the key players on both sides of this shadow war.
So on one side, you've got your investigators. There's Mara Lund, the cynical podcaster who's seen it all, and Eli Turner, a retired Navy signals expert who knows his stuff. They're joined by an insider, Candace Owen, and a wildcard hacker, Ian Carroll. And who are they up against? Well, you've got the charismatic face of the operation, Pastor Rob McKay, and the shadowy director Halverson, the one pulling all the strings from the Pentagon.
So you might be wondering, how on earth do you even start to uncover something this huge? Well, like a lot of these stories, it all kicks off with one tiny thing, a single stray signal.
The pilot does a great job of connecting the dots for us. It starts with Eli, just listening to his shortwave radio when he catches a key word. At the exact same time, Mara gets this cryptic tip, go to the sailor. They meet up, and that's when it all clicks. They realize a pastor's sermon they're listening to. It isn't a sermon at all. It's a coded military signal, hiding right out in the open.
And as they start pulling on that thread, the whole 4-step plan of Ziklag starts to come into focus. It's brilliant, really. First, they hide signals in church live streams. Then, they use the viewer data from those streams to literally map out the congregation. Next, they recruit ex-military members into these Faith Shield security teams. And the final step, using subliminal triggers in the sermons to get this entire network ready to move.
And make no mistake, we're not talking about a couple of rogue operations here. This thing is a coordinated, nationwide network. You've got command and control out in California, a propaganda arm in Nashville, the money guys in Texas, and all the data crunching happening in Michigan. It is a full-blown shadow operation. But mapping people and recruiting them, that's just phase 1. This is where the story really cranks up the tension as we find out where this all came from and what the terrifying endgame really is.
So this Ziklag program, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Its roots are actually in counterinsurgency tactics used back in Iraq, now repurposed for use at home. And who's paying for all this? A secret group of powerful magnates, oil, uranium, security, who see this as some kind of energy security crusade to protect their interests and basically control the country's future. And that brings us to the ultimate goal. This isn't just about influencing people. It's about engineering a crisis. The whole point is to trigger what looks like a genuine grassroots uprising all across the country, to create so much chaos that it justifies declaring martial law. And once that happens, the people funding the program can seize control. The whole season is structured as this fast-paced 6-episode thriller. It just builds and builds. Episode 1, they find the signal. Then they uncover the propaganda, the infiltration teams, the money trail, until boom, episode 5, the entire Ziklag network goes live nationwide. It all leads to this desperate final race to get the truth out before the plan completely collapses.
So what's the big idea behind all this? It really boils down to 2 very powerful words: faith weaponized.
You get this absolutely chilling confession from the antagonist, Pastor McKay, right at the climax. He says, "We never invaded the church, we became it." That's the real horror, isn't it? The threat isn't from the outside, it's a complete corruption from within, twisting faith into a tool for power.
But in the end, the heroes get the last word. Eli Turner's final broadcast just nails the whole moral of the story. They called it steeplechase because they thought they could outrun the truth. It's just this perfect, powerful statement on transparency versus a deep state conspiracy. So when the credits roll, the story leaves you chewing on this one big question. In a world that feels more and more unstable, where do you draw the line between surveillance and salvation, between protection and control? And that's exactly what a good thriller should do, make you think.
And there you have it. I probably should have had my mic off on that because of my sound echoes a little bit. See, now I'm getting Woodstock as my next ad coming up. So what is that saying about boomers? Yeah, that's pretty bad. They're really hammering us hard for being boomers today, but it's okay. We are boomers, so it is what it is. I just wanted to show you, just if you haven't seen it, this is our 1-minute clip after we pitched to Ziklag outside of the Ivy in Hollywood, where I first saw Juliana Moore accepting or being pitched the movie, at least what I thought the movie was, Big Lebowski, because it matched exactly. There's this crazy art woman lady that wants to be impregnated by this Lebowski guy, is what I heard at the Ivy. And Juliana Moore was like, I think I'm going to take another bite of my Cobb salad before I consider this role. It sounds weird. Yeah, she goes flying on a trapeze to try to keep the love juice of Lebowski inside her. I was like, I saw her kind of like reel back, visibly, while she said, just give me a minute here. I'm going to have the Cobb salad. So in Juliana Moore's honor, we ordered Cobb salad. And also the person we were pitching to ordered Cobb salad. We had 3 Cobb salads, and the cost was $200 or $197. So that's the last time we ever go to the Ivy. It was ridiculous. From now on, it's like Dunkin' Donuts, But anyway, here is what happened, just so that it's out there in the public record. We're not hiding anything. And people say, "Oh, George, don't leave the Ziklag investigation. Don't leave this pastor infiltration into these churches." I'm not. I'm basically going to be playing the role of Ian Carroll until Ian Carroll says, "Wow, that's a great role for me," and he'll realize that sooner or later. And Candace has already sort of realized her role. And eventually, the 2 of them will get together on this, and then we'll stop the infiltration when they realize this Charlie Kirk thing is just the Archduke Ferdinand. This is just the beginning assassination. Like Michael Hoffman says, all of these great social changes and social operations start with a human sacrifice, right? I tend to agree with Michael Hoffman. Michael Hoffman is this person who studied all of these: World War I, World War II, World War III, Civil War. And they all do start with sort of this Archduke Ferdinand assassination. And it does follow the Michael Hoffman arc of a major operation, like a World War I, World War II. And the Ziklag, it does look like it is the Second Civil War. It does follow that, Michael Hoffman's story arc. So that's from the metadata that I see. So here we are at the Ivy. This is just for laughs. This is just for laughs. But I thought everybody would be interested in seeing this.
Here we are, Peter Duke.
We're at the Ivy.
We're at the Ivy, and we just pitched the series, 6-part series about investigative journalists.
The Playa.
The Playa. It's really kind of like the investigators. We want Ian Carroll as the lead. We want Candace Owens, but we'll settle for somebody.
Duke.
Peter Duke, yeah, but they're all meet. We asked to do the setting of the story here in Los Angeles on Peter's boat, which we don't have yet, but that got nixed.
The Zero. We got to get them to buy us the Zero.
Yeah, all the investigators have to meet somewhere, so that didn't fly. So they said, no, what we really want is a boiler room like Fight Club. And do you have some place in like Michigan? And I said, I know exactly the place. So anyway, never mind. But that's where it's going to be set.
I didn't even have to say anything.
I know that's where it's going to be set. So thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
You went through.
I don't know what I'm.
There's going to be one character who is like the world. Here's the First World War, the Second World War. All the way from Rothschild's.
Well, I think you're the tip of the spear, and I'm the back of the arrow.
Yeah. There's one guy who's like got the whole big picture, and then there's the one micro guy knocking on all the doors.
They're waiting for it.
And there's our car. So we'll keep you posted. Writing a treatment for a 6-part series. Well, finally, Megyn Kelly goes DEFCON 3 is what comes up after my video. So
all right, you guys, happy Wednesday.
And so it's interesting that this finally came up, something related finally came up as a video, which is nice to see Candace Owens come up after my video, because that's what I'm talking about. But this is kind of this weird life imitates art imitates life. We're going ahead and doing the investigation, but then we're pitching the story for the investigators, the X-Files type combination of Candace and Ian to be getting together. And there's this Fight Club boiler room in Michigan where there are all these people that are retired military that are afraid to come out with their real name. And so they meet in this central place on the Ohio-Michigan border. We already have the Fight Club. The first rule, we call it the Right Club. The place in Michigan is called the Right Club. And it's the first rule at the Right Club is the secret boiler room owned by Mark Buckley in Michigan, in Bedford Falls. First rule of Right Club is you don't talk about Right Club. And the front of it looks like a place where you could buy cards and collectibles. Mark's the Silver Shark, and Aaron has got all these cards, all these collectible cards, which is what it is. But then you go in the back and it's the Right Club. It's all these, wire diagrams, with the conspiracy yarn and so forth. And the whole wall is the whole Ziklag organization, all 1,000 pastors, all 1,000, the hierarchy and how the whole infiltration is coming. So someone has to, get Ian to come to the Right Club there, and on the auspices that he's searching for some kind of gold coin. And then they lead him back into the Right Club in the back, and he sees the big board, he sees the 1,000 connections. And he goes, oh my God, you guys got all this. Yeah, this is the Right Club, So, and we threw that in there because the person who we were pitching it to did the Fight Club. And so he's, oh, I love that. So the Right Club in the story is there just for to try to appease the people writing the checks in this story. And that's why we have the boiler room in. So it's kind of a combination of Boiler Room, the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and Fight Club with Brad Pitt. This person also did Seven with Brad Pitt, and which isn't good. It's about a serial murderer, so we don't want to go there. But we do have, that is a part of the story, that will be part of the story, and it is a part of our story. We use it now, right? That is the place where we do all the yarn and conspiracy and the whiteboards and so forth. So nothing in this fictional treatment is not happening at the same time in reality, right? We just want the characters to be able to walk into the set and go, hey, I know this, and I know the rules. The first rule about Right Club is you don't talk about Right Club. It's all these Navy veterans and Army, and we're right by the VFW, we're right by the American Legion, we're right by all these places with all these retired military vets in intelligence, and they're all back there in the Right Club. And we run another Right Club here in Port Hueneme with all these Navy veterans here from the 3 different missile bases here, Lompoc with Space Force. So there's several Right Clubs. And again, the first rule of Right Club is you don't talk about the Right Club. So I can't talk about it here. So that's that with Peter and our somewhat expensive Cobb salad story, but we'll remember that forever. But it's interesting that it came up to this video, because here's where Candace, she puts like one foot into the world of, hey, I want to be this investigator. And now you can see them kind of pulling her on the arm to take her away from this investigation. And they're pulling her in the direction of Megyn Kelly and pulling her in the direction of Tucker Carlson. Let's just make this a ratings thing. Let's not make this an investigation. Let's not stop the Ziklag thing. Let's get away from Ziklag. Let's go talk about some discussion we had all amongst ourselves behind a curtain somewhere. Let's get away from the Right Club. Let's get away from all this investigating. Let's kind of get you over into podcast land. You're number one. Megyn Kelly says, hey, I could use a bump in my numbers. Tucker says I could use a bump in my numbers. Let's get you out of the Right Club and back in these boilers and going into these courtrooms and chasing people in Texas and Michigan and California. Let's get you over into the, back into La La Land, right? And that's what I think this broadcast is. And that's why I think Megyn Kelly did go DEFCON 3. Big showy anger, right? But all sound and fury meaning nothing. There's no significance. So Megyn Kelly is angry. She's strutting about the stage, right, with great anger, but it having no significance. Isn't that the last play of Hamlet? Not Hamlet. Macbeth, right? Strutting about the stage with no significance. Here it is.
I don't know what these people thought. I don't know what they thought. I think they thought Charlie Kirk would get assassinated. They would very quickly bury him in a yarmulke and then convince the world that he was actually besties with Ben Shapiro and Josh Hammer. He didn't even know Candace Owens. His last words before he died were, honor the Sabbath and buy Josh Hammer's book. Yeah. And also he had just written this Romeo and Juliet letter to Bibi Netanyahu. I feel like that was kind of the plan. But look, the best laid plans, they can fall apart. And I can tell you guys, this one is falling apart. It is like an avalanche of truth that is just coming at the Zionist lobby, because they were just sloppy in these lies, these post-mortem lies. Anyways, Megyn Kelly, okay, from the top ropes, she just swooped in and did something unexpected by slamming these people. Really, she didn't even try to slam them. She just told the truth. She produced video evidence of what Charlie said to Tucker backstage at the Student Action Summit in July. We're going to get to that also. Do you guys remember how everybody was freaking out when I told the truth about how long it normally takes for Turning Point USA events to come together on campus? Well, I always told you when they freak out, it's a clue. And now I know why they are kind of freaking out. And I'm going to tell you. So welcome back to Candace.
So I'm not saying this was the tyranny of the insignificant, but it seems like she's going toward, Bonfire and the Vanities. She seems like she's going kind of being pulled by these Hollywood types that have this kind of pull, with Tucker and Megyn, all of three fired supposedly from their networks. And they're creating this kind of troika of the dispossessed, the troika of the fire, we of the rejected nation, we're going to go out here and create, podcasting magic and all of our numbers are going to go up in podcasting. I don't want to see it go that direction. I want to see it go into this intense, data-driven, foot-pounding, gumshoe, 1,000 citizen journalists in every church in America doing infiltration videos to stop not stop the steal, but stop the Caesarean knife in the back, the assassination that's coming. We're being led to the slaughter. I'm trying to stop the next J6, which is going to be in 2028, might be in 2026. So this is really kind of the subplot to the Ziklag is really tussling over the souls of Ian Carroll and Candace Owen, right? Does Ian want to go his own way, right? Does Candace want to go her own way and go more Hollywood and become the new Diana for America? She certainly could become that person. Or do they want to go, forget that. I don't care about any of that. I care about the truth. I'm going to throw it all away. I'm going to go into this and this investigation with everything I have. And if it's the last thing I do, holding the red earth of terror above her, it reminds me of my mother, if it's the last thing I do here in Gone with the Wind, I'll never go hungry again, right? Are they going to have that kind of resolve? Are they going to go through that kind of metamorphosis in terms of sort of the same one I did when I saw Dmitry Alvarovich faking the DNC emails? Are they going to have that red pill moment where they go, this is the most important thing I could ever do with one life, and I don't care about anything else? Hell or high water, I don't care if I get killed, right? That's the other subplot that's going on here by having this duality between reality and thinly veiled fiction that's going on here. So I wanted to go really briefly to one other video while we have that. And this is just me talking about her in Hollywood, in Beverly Hills, right across the street, actually, from the Ivy. And just so people may have seen this video before, but just in case you haven't, here we go.
George Webb here in Los Angeles, Southern California. You may know that Prager University, where Candace Owens worked, is just up in those hills about 5 miles away in Sherman Oaks. That's Miss Straight, that's Melissa Straight. And you may know just a little bit to the east of that is where Robbie McCoy has his church. And they have shootings there every once in a while where people are shot in Las Vegas and then they get shot again at Robbie McCoy's place there in Thousand Oaks. But they just had a big meeting here in Los Angeles, a big meeting of everyone kind of in this NAR movement, and sort of rallying the troops, circling the wagons, West Coast Revival. All of them are fundraisers. But between the two of them, she used to work for the IDF. She works for Israeli intelligence services and so forth. Candace Owens worked for her, so she knows Melissa Straight very well. And then her husband was also a podcaster. And she shot to number one. She was here in Los Angeles with Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, in kind of drummed out of the service, fired by the Daily Wire a year and a half ago. Started from scratch and now is number one in the world, right? Why is Candace Owens number one in the world here in Los Angeles? I think Ben's gone to Florida now from here, but why is she number one in the world? Because the American people don't feel like they're getting the straight story. They don't feel like they're being told the truth. They feel like Candace Owens is the only one with subject matter knowledge of knowing all the insiders at TPUSA, and especially this kind of military incursion or insurrection or infiltration called TPUSA Faith, also known as Ziklag, also known as NAR, but I'm speaking of the military group, the Rob McCoy group. And they're saying a lot of nasty things, like if you don't change your story on Israel, if you don't change what you're saying, we're going to mark you for death. Rob McCoy pretty much on August 22nd had a sermon. Baron Coleman talked about it in his podcast where he's sort of like Babe Ruth pointing to center field, called shot. If you don't stop talking about Israel, you don't talking about Gaza, you're going to be marked for death. So and then he dies and murdered 3 weeks later. So people care about truth. That Candace wouldn't be number one here in Los Angeles. She wouldn't be number one in all these markets if people didn't care about the truth. People want to know the story of the truth. They want to know how these citizen journalists came about the truth, how they got to where we are. And we're going to see more. We're going to see more. This is not only the most popular subject today, it's also the last straw for a lot of people. Kennedy, JFK, MLK, RFK, then the Epstein files, J6, just a whole litany of lack of transparency. And this Charlie Kirk thing, because it's right in front of their face, it's the Zapruder film live. It's kind of the last snapping straw here. So people want the information, they want the truth, and we're here to get it. We're here in places like the Thousand Oaks Church. We almost went there. A part of our group in a charrette previously went up with Judy Mickowitz at that church about a year ago, I believe. So it's not something that we're not familiar with, and we're meeting with the people to get the story out. We're meeting with the people to get the story out about getting to the truth.
Okay, and what I wanted to say here, let me eliminate that because, okay, so I see a lot of comments. I saw Connie's comment and so forth about, hey, why are you saying bad stuff about Nick Fuentes? Remember, I'm not saying Nick Fuentes knows that his group is going to be used to lead people to the slaughter in 2028 or 2026. I'm not saying he's a part of it. I saw the same thing happen with Ali Alexander, right? I'm there with Peter when Ali's, all the phone calls are happening after the election last time for Stop the Steal. I saw it all with my own eyes. Ali Alexander was supposed to speak the last day. Peter was right there in the VIP tent. They all brought their clans, they all brought their flocks to Washington, and everyone was going to watch the proceedings in the Congress to review the vote. That was what was going to happen, is everybody was going to make sure that Congress didn't skip it. They were going to vote with their faces and say, hey, we're here watching you, U.S. senators. We want you to review this vote like the Constitution says. So J6 was all about having people peaceably assemble in Washington, D.C. to watch the vote and make sure their congressman, their senator reviewed the vote. That's what it was about. And if you don't review the vote, well, there's the primary process. So we're here to tell you with our feet that we're here to watch the vote. That's what J6 was, right? What did it turn into, right? This is why I'm saying, I'm not saying Nick Fuentes is a bad guy. I'm just saying I saw the same thing happen to Ali Alexander. He was led into the slaughter, just like everyone else who went to J6 was led to the slaughter, right? Everyone there was supposed to speak, and at the last minute, what happened? They cut them off, and they didn't speak. All those groups that were brought to Washington, D.C., they were handled. It's a trick, right? It's a trick that you find out the last day that it's a slaughter, right? You don't find out the first day. This is why I'm saying Nick Fuentes, Kai Schwemmer, all these folks are probably the most sincere people in the world for what they believe. But they are saying the same thing that they said in J6, which is Trump should, we should make Trump maybe president in 2028 if their philosophy, which is I could see Trump being made president in 2028 because we don't want to have a regular constitutional progression. And that is what they will use. That is what the handlers and the Ziklaggers will use over and over and over again to recruit people, to make sure there's massive crowds there. And then the Maidan happens. Then you take all the people that you've recruited from that you've used as shooters and mercenaries in Ukraine, you position them in high places, you make sure that the crowd has no exit points, that they have to go through control points. You rain fire down on the exit points. You rain fire down on the exit points and you create a mass slaughter. That's how it's done, right? That's how it's done in the military. That's how it will be done in 2028. It may be sooner than that. It may be 2026. The only thing we're doing is exposing that before everybody's murdered, right? And we want to expose the Ziklag and expose NAR before that happens. Again, NAR is also not a bad thing. I know a lot of people extremely close to me that are part of the apostolic movement, including the person who runs our journalism school in Michigan, right? So it's not NAR, it's the infiltration, the Ziklag infiltration into NAR that we're talking about with all these special forces people, right? In terms of using faith as a network, as a surveillance network. All of these people are encouraging violence. I agree with the commenter here. All of these folks are encouraging, hey, if we don't get resolution to our issue, we're coming for you, right? Anything that moves toward the aggressive, right, is moving you toward the slaughter pen, is moving you toward a Maidan. The same people, by the way, that did the Rada, right, in Ukraine in 2014 were at January 6th in 2021. The same people, they practiced in Harrisburg, right, a week before. So the same Ukrainians that did Rada, the shooting and the slaughter pen in Rada, are going to be the same people, the same units, Azov units, are going to be used in 2028, right? Now, I'm just one voice, and I'm not going to just do what I did last time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Last time was just one gumshoe out there without a big social footprint, going to all the locations and showing all the locations before they happen, like Fort Bragg 6 times, showing the buses being loaded up by Emily Rainey to send people to Washington, D.C., radicalizing them, sort of mini radicalization on the bus, whipping them up into attacking, and all the kind of jingoistic speeches they were listening to on the bus while they were going up there. I'm not going to do the same thing. I know it needs to be people that have bigger footprints than me if we're going to stop this thing. It's got to be Ian with the 1 million and growing extremely fast footprint, and Candace with 5 million going to 10 million, #1 podcast in the world. If we don't engage them, right, and we don't make them the heroes of this, we're going to lose, right? If a tree falls in the forest like January 6th, we lose the information war. And I don't want that to happen again. That's why I wrote the story. That's why I've engaged Peter. That's why we've got these right clubs that we're talking about in the story. It's really Fight Club, right? For boomers. It's really Fight Club for boomers. Instead of beating each other up, we all get into the boiler room now, and we don't trade on penny stocks that don't exist. With Leonardo DiCaprio in our boiler room. The boiler room we have is a NAR boiler room, and it's a secret NAR boiler room, which Mark has, and we're trying to figure out the Ziklag infiltration of NAR. We're trying to save NAR, right? And we're trying to figure out how that happens. So we have this secret boiler room in Michigan, and it's there already. The stars can step right into it, and art can imitate life, and life can imitate art now to stop the Ziklag infiltration. So if I work for the IDF, go live in Israel. Yeah, I agree with all these things. Again, whether he was canceled or not canceled, the thing for me, the reason why I point out Nick, the reason why I point out Kai Schwemmer is they're the ones who say, are you against Trump 2028? Are you for or against Trump 2828? Trump's had his 22nd Amendment, you're done. 22 skidoo, you're out, right? 22 and you're done, right? So this is the critical issue. If you think 22 isn't skidoo, if you think the 22nd Amendment written in 1953 that says presidents can only have 2 terms, if you believe that we should skidoo on 22 and you aren't going to skidoo after your second term, that's the critical litmus test. And that's where Ziklag is going to go. That's where Ziklag is going to try to recruit people. That's where the slaughter pen is going to be. That's where the Rada pen is going to be. Some bomb or explosive will go off in the middle of the crowd. It will cause an exit. Like the same thing was planned for January 6th. It'll go through control points or funnel points. There'll be snipers positioned with pre-trained guns on those control points. There may be explosions at those control points to create even more mass confusion. Then you'll have other exfiltration points, which will have pre-sighted guns, and then the slaughter will happen. This is classic military training and planning for ambushes. That's what's coming for all the true believers, right? And I want to avoid that. That's why we have the Right Club. First rule about Right Club when you go to Michigan, though, is don't talk about Right Club. First rule. Okay. Everything that's going to happen has already been written. We are flipping the script. That is a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it. This plan is already written. That's their script. We're writing the anti-script. Beautiful. Love that. I don't like any of the people or the choices. Those aren't the only two choices. Somebody else can write a different script. Somebody else can have somebody else. I've got the guy who did X-Files. I've got the guy, I have the guy who did X-Files and did it, kept X-Files for going 14 years, and so he knows how to tell the story. And I've got the guy, I picked the two people that are most popular in the world right now that have shown the most courage and given up the most, or potentially the most, with Ian and Candace. So I have the two heroes that I believe are the most backable, if you will, the most sponsorable, or the most ones that you can believe in, not the Rob McCoys. I think those folks are liars, and I think they're running the infiltration. So that's why I picked them. But you're Jay Dyer. I've met Jay. I think Jay's here in Los Angeles. We talked about Matthew Arendt. We talked about Matthew Crawford. All of these people are great. I think they're all great. And if they want to write a script, all of those are guys who've written scripts. If they want to write a script about saving America, great. I just put mine out there as a potboiler. But if this starts a new race in Southern California for people to tell the truth, or a new race in Hollywood, right, which is Nashville, great. That's what my intention was. Mine is a potboiler then, so great. Let's see. Nick will not lead anyone to a slaughter. Nick's pretty smart. I've seen Nick go to all the TPUSA events. I saw Ali Alexander's pretty smart guy. I've seen it. He's the one saying Trump 2028. I've seen Bannon say Trump 2028. Those are the key words to show you slaughter pen. As soon as you say Trump 2028, you have given congressional authorization, right, for the slaughter pen. Right? You're against the Constitution. We're protecting the Constitution. Continuity of government has been declared. A bomb just went off at the Peace Arch, or the Peace Circle, right? And that's where they did it the last time when I was filming Joe Biggs. We now can protect the Constitution. Have all the Rada Ukrainian snipers commence firing. Right? I'm trying to save Nick. Right? That's the thing people aren't reading here. But I'm trying to save Nick. I'm trying to save Kai Schwimmer. America First. I don't think he's a plant, but I do think I don't think he's a plant, but I do think he is just what the doctor ordered if you were running Ziklag. You get me a bunch of violent youth that think Trump should win in 2028. Oh, can you see the Ziklaggers and the Rada snipers? Oh, give me some people who think Trump should be in 2028. Let me set a bomb off in the middle of that crowd, right? That's what they're thinking, right? That's what the Ziklaggers are thinking. And again, I've been through it all before. I've seen it all before. I wouldn't be writing what I'm writing if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes and lived it with my own eyes and reported on it live. And I can tell you the last time of warning, here are all the key places, didn't work. You need to have somebody with that social footprint doing the investigation. Otherwise, it won't take. A tree falling in the forest does not keep the forest from burning down, right? That's just a tree way out there fell in the forest. What difference does that make? You got to have the ranger see it, and you got to have the fire spotters, and you got to get the planes, the communication going. You got to say, hey, they're trying to burn the forest down, right? Erica. Ponds, I agree with that. I agree. I'm not saying these are bad people. What I'm saying is they will use your emotions to ensure your death, right? That's what I'm saying. And I can tell you the same exact thing happened in Iraq, same thing happened in Afghanistan, these religious meetings and so forth, right? This all has been worked through and done in military intelligence, working with Islam. The only thing they've done is just change the names, right? That's the treatment. You saw the 5-minute treatment saying, take the same military infiltration techniques used for Islam, right? For the various Al-Qaeda and the various groups, and map it onto the American faith movement and faith networks, and you have the answer, right? You have the answer. I'll let Nick know. Great. Nick, you can come on to my podcast anytime you want. And I'll go on yours anytime you want. Yeah. Well, I was given assurances before Ali Alexander. I was given assurances for January 6th. First thing I said to Peter when I got off the plane, he had just been in Florida doing a photo shoot for Enrique Terrio, who is a true believer. And I said, I don't know, Joe Biggs. I interviewed him a year ago. He was force psychological operator for Stanley McChrystal in Afghanistan. I don't think it's going to work out. And Enrique Terrio had a kind of with Proud Boys, like, hey, I don't know. I'm not going to go over any gates. I don't want to go over any gates on January 6th, a week before. Oh, well, we'll get him on a gun charge and we'll just get him out and we'll have Joe Biggs lead the group over the gates. We are going to throw the gates. Capitol Hill. If Enrique Terrio doesn't want to do it, then we'll have Joe Biggs. I remember having that conversation the day after the election with Peter Duke when he picked me up at LAX airport. So again, these eyes, when their song, These Eyes Have Seen a Lot of Love. I can't remember the song, These Eyes, right? Talk to you about Candace. Yeah, you have Candace Owens coming out now saying, I think I had a handler. If I had a handler, they sang about it. Peter, Paul, and Mary sang about it. If I had a handler, I'd handle in the morning. Remember that? It was a big thing in the 60s. Let's see. Nick would never partner with TPUSA or NAR military pastors. I'm not saying that he will. I mentioned Stop the Steal and Ali Alexander, who was not affiliated with any religious movement. I specifically said Ali because he was not religious. I'm just saying all the people that came to January 6th was a coalition, right? And they were told they were going to speak. I was there when Ali Alexander spoke on the 5th. He was told he was going to be on the platform on the 6th to speak right before Trump on the 6th. Right? They shut those guys down at the last minute. What they wanted was those people to show up in Washington, D.C. They were tricked, what I'm saying. I'm not saying it would be with TPUSA or NAR pastors. That's a whole different group that was there. Again, 5 of the 7 people surrounding Trump that day were NAR pastors, if you remember, right? So I'm not saying it's any one particular thing. I'm saying it's everybody bringing their people there. America Firsters will be there as well, and they will be slaughtered as well. Again, that's why we have the Ziklag board, right? It's a little bit complicated. That's why it's Right Club. And the first rule about Right Club is you don't talk about Right Club. That's why it's in a boiler room. That's why it's Michigan, right? So Eli is rephrasing your question, and people can answer better. Try rephrasing your question. I don't mind. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, I know Nick Fuentes is not a Trumper. It doesn't matter. Okay. They want to kill people that are America first. Okay. So I don't care if Nick Fuentes is so far away from Ziklag. It's incredible. It's the exact polar opposite. What I am saying is Nick Fuentes' America First group will be invited. And he will be asked to speak before a big crowd, and he will accept the speaking engagement just like Ali Alexander did. And his people will come, and his people will come to hear him speak. And that's all they care about. They don't really care what he says. They just want to make sure the America First group is there. They want to make sure the Kai Schwimmer group is there, right? If you're there, we can shoot you, right? If you're there, we can explode a bomb and create a panic and create you running. You've already been pre-programmed. When you hear shots, you run, right? That already has been the pre-programming of the Charlie Kirk. When you hear shots, you run. You hear shots, you run. Now you shouldn't. When you hear shots, you should take cover behind something big and solid. When you run, you're going to get trampled. When you run, you're going to go to a controlled position that's been pre-sighted for a slaughter, right? That's the programming there. The America First will have an event that will be disrupted, and these Ziklaggers will shoot them, right? They do think they're the enemy. This did happen already. It happened at January 6th, right? We saw the Capitol Police person plant the bomb, right? We saw the Capitol Police make heroes out of the people shooting the pepper balls, right? We saw them making heroes out of the people who had the psychological operators throw the gates. We saw Steve Baker taking you to Nancy Pelosi's room and say that these are the trinkets and tokens, the holy relics were broken, right? That's what the Trump people did. They broke the holy family relics. We had Nancy Pelosi's daughter send out the Insurrectionists Next Door film. That's Steve Baker provided the raw footage for that, right? So the story wasn't George Webb out there at the gate saying, this is a psychological operation. And these gates were thrown as a part of psychological operation to blame Trump. That's the true story. That was buried. And what is the story you got? These Trump people came in and broke Nancy Pelosi's holy relics. And that lasted for 4 years, 5 years almost now, 4 years. And now they're trying to retell the story with Steve Baker, right? I understand Nick Wendy's not a Trumper. I'm talking about America First. I'm talking about Trump 2028. I heard Kai Schwimmer out of his own mouth say Trump 2028. I heard Steve Bannon say Trump 28. I didn't make up Trump 2028, right? Trump 2028 does exist. My den was the last major one. My dens do happen. Right? The reason why I say my den is so that you don't think I'm kidding. Military, and I'm looking right at the base right now, right? I'm looking right at the base right now. This is how they plan ambushes. This is not speculation. This is how it works. The pickings are slim. I think you're referring to the number of people that have risked hearth and home and all their money and reputation and everything to go for the truth are slim. Pickings are slim, right? And that may be kind of commenting on I'm no Ian Carroll either. Well, I never said I was. I never said I wasn't Ian Carroll. So there you go. Spoke well from it. Yeah. And it was his turn at the end. It was his turn at the end that got him killed. It was his turn at the end. Rob McCoy lays it all out. First, I met with him one-on-one. Then I met in a group in the Hamptons. And then I marked him. Right. So Nick isn't calling people accountable. I agree with everything that Nick Fuentes says. It's the yes ladder. Yes on a lot of things until he gets to some of the things he says. He says he's not going to use the N-word anymore. Thank you, Nick, because I disagreed with him on that. And some of the Israeli things he says I don't think are true. But it's the critical point. It could be anything else. The critical point is Trump 2028 or getting in the way of succession of power. That immediately invokes continuity of government. That immediately invokes the Rada snipers. That immediately invokes the Ukrainian snipers. That immediately invokes the slaughter pen. Right? And I'm seeing this happening. Both sides will get it. both sides, the coalition of the right on the left, all the coalitions of the right will be brought together to Washington, D.C. for another January 6th slaughter. 2028 is when we feel it will happen, around the banner of Trump 2028. McCoy flashes real sniper signs at 3152. I don't know if he flashes real sniper signs, but he does say in another speech where he's wearing the black shirt, he says they can't escape, something to that effect. They can't, what's his direct quote? They can't hide. Charlie can't hide, right? These people can't hide. Tucker Carlson can't hide. That means we have intelligence services to electronically follow you wherever you go, and we have people not only to find and fix, Michael Flynn, right? We not only can find and fix, we can finish. We have a lot of different ways to finish. You can have a car accident, you can have a plane accident, you can have a helicopter accident, you can drown in boating, you can drown in swimming, you can drown getting on a bus, or I mean, you could get hit by a bus, you can get, you know, hit by a car crossing the street. There's a lot of different ways to finish. Torre, that's funny. Torre, that's funny you mentioned Torre, because she worked for John Brennan in electronic warfare. Torre told us all, well, Torre told you the part the CIA wanted you to know. And Torre's another one that, you know, breadcrumbs out things to the NAR folks that, put it this way, if Torre told you in 2021, then I told you in 2017, 4 years before Torre. I definitely need assistance. I cannot do this all alone, right? The guy who wrote Forrest Gump, we just did this story at the Ivy, the guy who wrote Forrest Gump's 10 years. 10 years writing Forrest Gump. Basically, wouldn't it be great if we put all the CIA psyops in one movie, and one guy is responsible for all the CIA psyops? All the times we pulled the rug over the American people's eyes, what if we did a movie like that? Well, it took him 10 years, right? And a lot of people helped him do Forrest Gump. So any religion becomes radicalized as a danger to everyone else. I agree with that. That's the secret of the whole discussion. Younger generation are moving toward America first. I'm all for America first. The reason why I thought of joining the IDF was to fight for democracy, so we protect Americans, not Israelis. There's only 18 million. There's only 18 million Israelis. There's 300 million Americans. And if we're at that time, after 2001, they're coming to our shores rather than fight in the streets of New York, right? I did go to New York after 9/11, right? I was as close as you could get to the hole legally that you could get there in the Woolworth building right next to it, looking down into the pit, right? And I thought I was, you know, that's the next best thing I can do, if not fighting the Muslim horde in Israel. That's the front lines. So I just wanted to go to the front lines. I was too old to go into the IDF, so I went to looking into the hole of 9/11, and I got as close as I could to the action. Last time I checked, yes, New York's still in the United States. I was as close to the front line as you can get. Stuff's still smoldering when I got there, right? So I was as close to the front line as you can get. That's as America first as you can get. I participated in for a year and a half, maybe two, into the 9/11 memorial. That's about as America first as you can get. It's not about Israel. Yeah, there's a church website that has all the sermons on YouTube. Yes, thank you very much. You can watch the sermons. Charlie was done doing Gaza. I agree with that. That's why they had him killed. I would say that there were people in the United States that got a lot of money from Israel, like Rob McCoy. And those are the people that made the decisions, right? Godspeed Calvary Chapel 88 is the chapel. We had Rick, Cafe Rick, we had Rick Olson, the great pianist, play the 88 keys of the Calvary Chapel, right? I need to start over. I highly recommend Twin Tuttle's book, Conspiracy for Kids. Well, it's not, if you think about it, let me do the kids' explanation. Every November, first Tuesday, after the first Monday, we all go and put our ballot into a box. That's called a ballot box. And then when the balloting is over, we dump the ballot box out and we count all the votes. And whoever has the most votes wins. And that's how democracy works, right? That's the story you tell your children. The story that the intelligence services says is, what if things don't go our way? What if things don't go our way? What if right before we count the ballot box, what if we had a couple of protest groups come in? What if we said that they were Trump people? What if we engineered and we threw some gates before the ballot box was counted? And we said the Trump people were attacking so the ballots couldn't be counted. That doesn't make any sense. There was no incentive for the Trump people to do anything that day other than watch the ballots being counted, right? So it made no sense. But then they'll stage it and then they'll have violence and somebody will be killed and then they'll blame it on Trump. Isn't that what happened? Isn't that the story of January 6th, boys and girls? We filmed it live. We showed that it was a false flag that day. We showed Joe Biggs. We showed him throwing the gates. That's why Steve Baker missed that part. We said it was a false flag to set up Trump, right? And that's how elections are saved. That's how democracies are saved, Johnny and Janie. That's how democracies are saved, with citizen journalism. And that's the story for the kids. That's the story of January 6th. And the story for this is how democracy is saved. Because when somebody tells a bad story that's going to lead to a bad ending for a whole bunch of really good people need to write good stories to save those good people, right? That's the kid's story here. Youth is getting very angry and scary. I can see it. Yes, they're being trained. As soon as you hear a shot, run. Boy, isn't that what a sniper loves? Run into a pre-sighted kill box, right? No, take cover behind something big and solid so you can assess, observe, right? Then decide and act, right? OODA loop. Observe, take cover, don't move, right? Try to understand where the shots are coming from. Look at a place where there's an exit. There's going to be people running in all directions. Let the running dissipate. Find where the kill boxes are. Find where the control points are, the choke points are, and the killing is occurring. Okay, move away from the killing. Find an alternate route where there isn't a kill box. Azov Nazis, there's every bit of same. You could say the Jews did it, right? Or you could say the people who want to keep the Ukraine war going did it. I think it's the people wanting to keep the Ukraine war doing it because it is the people who want to keep the Ukraine war. Now, are a lot of those Zionists? Yes. Are a lot of those Christian Zionists? Yes. I've been to the Clay Clark, General Flynn meetings. I met Clay. I met Michael Flynn. And I do, after meeting them, I do think that they are in charge of doing these Reawaken America events to get facial recognition on everybody and get everybody's name. They have these big old revivals. Now, they might not be necessarily know what the plan is going to be for 2028. They might not be read into the whole Ziklag, but I know what's going to happen. I know it's going to happen because I've seen it before. I lived through it. Well, the good news here is I'm not recommending violence against anybody, right? I'm trying to benefit them with information so that they can be forewarned and forearmed, right? I'm trying to benefit all the groups for the 2028 Trump thing. You're going to hear more and more of this. You heard Bannon say it already. You're going to hear Jack Posobiec saying it pretty soon. You're going to have these pastors saying it pretty soon. I'm warning you so that when you hear it, you go, oh, I know what this is. I know what this Trump 2028 thing is. It's a slaughter pen. I know what this is. That's what we're doing here. Is Ziklag, Ziklag, a private association? I believe it is. And not too far from you in Texas, Deborah. I think it's in Cullen, Texas. Is that where it is? Trump 28 is nothing but trolling. Trump follows the Constitution closely. I agree, but it isn't just trolling. Bannon is saying it on his show. I just want to get you all ready for this. Here, some people can confirm this, but Bannon is saying this. I just want to let you all know that Trump 2828 is going to be a thing. He's seen the Ziklag plan. It's a Navy intel guy that's seen the plan and knows what's coming. Cross-reference me. Check me on this. Younger generation, 30% of people 30 years old could afford a house. Under 30 years old, 30% of the people could get a house in 1953 or did own houses. Today, it's less than 3%. I think that's the number I heard. It went from 30% to 3%. Don't mess with Nancy's trinkets. Don't mess. Oh, when I saw Lance Twiggs, which is, I wonder if Lance Twiggs is a fake name. I wonder if they're trying to, create diversion away from the C2 to T1 killer. Yeah, don't. And it's always pushing some Chinese, Zionist partnership company like Temu. Don't touch the Temu trinkets. That could set him off. You touch the Temu trinkets, in his shrine that he's got, his holy garbage shrine in the middle of his apartment. I mean, the kind of Tricky Tom messages, they're just so laughable. They're so right out of Navy intel, script writing, AI script writing. It's so laughable. Mark Ellison hasn't come up, but Peter has a wheel of power of oligarchs, and Larry Ellison has come up. Mark Ellison has not come up. Larry Ellison did come up yesterday. I'm not criticizing Candace for going in the direction of Megyn Kelly. I'm just saying that's what I just noticed yesterday. I just saw a step in the Megyn Kelly direction and in the Tucker Carlson direction. That's not toward resolution. That's not toward warning everybody about Ziklag, right? And when I see her take a step in that direction, fine. If I see her take 2 or 3 or 4 steps, I'll say, okay, that's not good. If she steps back in the Ian Carroll direction, then I'll be like, oh, okay, this is going back in the right way, right? But Megyn Kelly hasn't had me on her show yet to talk about Ziklag, right? Tucker Carlson, Peter and I provided information to Tucker Carlson about J6 and about Emily Rainey and warned them of J6 and loading the buses. And they turned Emily Rainey into a hero. So I don't have a lot of faith in Tucker through personal experience. I'm willing to, if Tucker, you want to have me on the show, great. I'll say what the plan is. That's the best way to get this out, is to expose the plan. Enemies inside or outside the United States. They have a congressional mandate to put together sniper teams to shoot people that are enemies of the state. And when I see them practicing and I see all the military signatures and I see the military metadata, what do you want me to say, right? How long will it take to make this series? Well, we're making the series anyway. So we're shooting the series in reality. So we're living the series in reality. We're not waiting for anybody to greenlight anything. I'm playing the part of Ian Carroll, right? Candace is playing Candace. Candace just doesn't know it yet, right? And I'll just tell Candace, you're going away from the script when she goes away from the script. When you go toward Megyn Kelly and go toward Tucker, I'm like, hey, that's not in the script. You got to get back to Ian Carroll, right? I'll keep encouraging her to play the real part, but we're living this out. This is, live action role play now, and I'm playing the part of Ian, right? And I've done this before at J6, so it's not hard for me to step into the role. But don't worry, hang on. We will have somebody half my age and shockingly good looking soon. But until then, I'll play the part in reality, right? Janice Joplin worked at Texaco. Her ex-husband also overdosed. Jim Croce was in the Army, died in a plane crash. Jimi Hendrix overdosed. Yeah, all of these guys, the recruiting process for the oddballs, they used to call them, they still use them, right? Hey, we'll dress them up, look like a Bahamian guy right out of the jungle, and we'll turn the guitar upside down. Plays great guitar. We can use this guy. We'll get him to say things that are good about Orange Sunshine. We'll have Robert Allen Hale give Orange Sunshine to anybody who wants it on Sunset Boulevard. Avi, we've talked about Pravi Sector, which is right sector, for years. We have the boiler room. We have the Right Club boiler room in Michigan to try to stop Azov and Pravi Sector in America. We're there with you. We know where the snipers are coming from. We're there with you. Yeah, I definitely, I don't want to get into the politics of it because I'm in the bullets. I'm in snipers. I'm in infiltration. I'm not into arguing the scripture or anything like that. I'm into what is actually happening on the ground, right? Just intelligence gathering on the ground. That's all that we're doing, right? Not getting into the politics. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything to me. I don't identify with MAGA. I don't identify with America First. I identify with sniper positions. I identify with where they're going to place the bomb, right? That's when the dog scratches on the van at Butler for the explosives for Urich and Hooper, and then that van magically disappears and we forget all about the dog. We forget about the explosives out of Butler. That's what I care about. The part that they're not telling you. Right. I'm not into arguing the politics, right? Because all I see is that's to get both groups to get into the slaughter pen, not just one. It may be 2026. A lot of people said, no way, 2028, 2026. Well, that's why I'm starting in 2025. Look up the federal case of DBSI in Idaho. Sorry about, you're going to hear a click.